All right, so we'll start from the beginning of that thing, but we'll just go through. Okay, we discussed the whole union of Atzmus quite extensively yesterday. Atzmus and his pashtus, and hopefully, I know I reviewed it several times. I hope that the participants in the shir also did the same thing. Right, page Kufmem, the principle of how do you understand the difference between the pe'ula, the action affected by oy pnimi, versus the action affected by oy makif. The hine, for behold, b'chol dover, in everything yesh, there is atzmus v'hispashtus.
Where are we?
Right there.
Kufmem hey.
No, it says.
Right in the beginning, I'll find it. In everything there is atmos v'hispashtus. Again, I have to reiterate and remind us so that we have this clear in our mind as we're going through. The reason a thing is something which is created by the Creator. It did not develop on its own. Very important principle to recognize and understand the significance of that. And thus, in everything there is the atzmus. The atzmus is the essence of that thing, and the essence element that was imbued in this thing. The hispashtus, and then there is the hispashtus, the spreading forth and the development of that thing. And this is true in everything. And the Rebbe goes on and says, the gam, which means to say that even the oil ha'insoiv, in the oil ha'insoiv, the ein soif oil, and we said the oil the insoiv that cannot be identified at all. It's the infinite oil, and we explained the principle of infinity in that context. It's infinite, not in any in a measurable fashion. It's infinite due to the infinity is to represent its unmeasurable significance. Yesh bechinas ho'atzmus, in this oir ein soif. Even in the oir ein soif, there is two in this two inyanim. Bechinas ho'atzmus the oir ein soif, the bechina, the aspect of the atzmus, of the essence of the oir ein soif, or bechinas ha'hispashtus shaloi, and the aspect of the hispashtus. Even though, in essence, throughout it is oir ha'ein soif, it's ein soif, and yet there too we can identify conceptually two aspects. Atzmus, the essential aspect, and the hispashtus, and how it is expressing itself, spreading forth. And the Rebbe explains, the ho'atzmus with the atzmus, what is the atzmus aspect in this oir ha'ein soif? Who it is? Rag bebechinas gilui min ha'etzem. The atzmus only has the aspect that it is a gilui min ha'etzem. It is a revelation, an expression, and a statement from the etzem. Meaning to say, it does not have a function. It is revealing and it pointing to the etzem. Listen, I'm coming from an etzem. This is the atzmus. And the bechina, the aspect of hispashtus, the expression, the development of it. This is that aspect of bo lifoil, that bo means it comes to, meaning it's intent to, it is there in order to live, in order to be effective, in order to create something. Okay, so these are the two aspects of in the Oyer Sof. Gili mino etzem and bo lifoil. Now, if we stop to think for a moment, Gili minho etzem and Gili from the etzem, this Gili minho etzem does not contribute anything, because the etzem is there in whole, and Gili minho etzem is just pointing, says, "Oh, there is an etzem over here." But I'm going to call your attention to the last few words on the second line. Bivchinas gila mino etzem. It has a message. The message is, I am a gila mino etzem. And if the message is, I'm a gila mino etzem, means, if you look at me, you'll understand what the etzem is. You'll be able to relate to the etzem by looking at me, because all I stand for is this gila mino etzem. Bibchinas gila mino etzem. This is all I stand for. Bibchinas hayispashtus. Continuing on the end of the second line. Bibchinas hayispashtus. The aspect of the hispashtus, of the spreading forth and bringing its presence to be, who shebo lifoil. It's in any shebo lifoil that it comes with the intent of lifoil to have an effect. This points back. This definition that Atzmus is Gila Mino Etzem, Bibchinas Gila Mino Etzem, that's all it is. This is what it stands for. Gila Mino Etzem. This brings back, it alludes back to what we explained earlier in Perek Muvov, the Be'er Ein Soy Be'etzem, that in the Oyer Ein Soy Be'etzem, in the essence of the Oyer Ein Soy, what Oyer Ein Soy represents, what it stands for, Ein Shayach Shum Shem Klal. There, a name is totally not applicable. Not Shayach means there's no possibility of identifying it by a name. Let me see if I can find a tissue someplace. What is the implication in these words? This is a direct result, a direct derivative of what we said in the line before.
To remain on this call, press 1.
That it's a gili mino etzem. It's a gili from the etzem, which means it is exclusively pointing to the etzem. And therefore, a name is not applicable. As we explained yesterday or the day before, I remember exactly. What is the principle of a name? A name is that which identifies the entity within an outside environment. A name is a reference by which this entity is known outside of itself. A name is not something that one refers to himself by name. Himself, he has himself. To refer to something outside, this is where you need a name. The name refers to this entity in its true presence, but from outside. And he said that in Atzmus, in Etzem, in the Shaykh Shum Shem. In the Etzem, Etzem is not Shaykh any kind of name. And the Rebbe says this is a direct effect, and this is the direct result of what we say that it's Gilim Min Ho'etzem. Since it is B'chinas Gilim Min Ho'etzem, it is a statement of the Etzem itself. Just like the Etzem does not refer to itself by name, so too this Atzmus, which is B'chinas Gilim Min Ho'etzem, is also no such thing as a name applicable to it. Now, we said, when in the onset, we are talking kol dover, everything, which means you're talking a thing that is a standalone a thing. And in this thing, there is the atzmus of the thing. Where does this thing get the atzmus element? It gets it from the etzem that created it. Which immediately calls for the insight that this atzmus, this dover, was not created as a response to a solicitation, to a need, to a circumstance. Because if it was created as a response to a circumstance, then it's not an etzem. The atzmus is a direct creation from the source, from the etzem itself. The etzem of the creation is a b'chinas gilim min etzem. It's a statement from the etzem. And therefore, it follows that this is a direct connect to what we said before, that the AYIN is of etzem in a Shaykh Shum Shem klal. That the AYIN is of etzem, any name is not Shaykh. In other words, you cannot identify and give a name. What is the principle that this Or Ein Sof is creating? What is the that he creates? Why does he create? What does that stand for? It's a gilim min etzem. It's a statement of the truth of the etzem itself. A name is not applicable to this, because this is not a statement that This is not an etzem that exists, that can be identified and recognized outside of itself. It's a primary truth in and of itself, not a circumstantial aspect at all. To put it in our words, we always mention what the Rambam says, that the first principle is to know that there is a first being. The word first being immediately places our thought in a dilemma. If it's a being, how can it be a first being? A first being means it's a being from etzem itself, from itself. It's a gila mino etzem. Enough said. To speak about it more anymore, it's not going to bring it out any clearer. And the clarity of it is completely contained within our own wisdom, our own chokhmah. And therefore the union of a name is not applicable. Okay, we're now on the fourth line. We also explained there that if we should allude to it by name of Atzmus, of Einus of B'Yetzem, if we should allude to it by name, Harehu B'Shem Rotze, it would be with the name of Rotze. What is the name of Rotze? He's going to a little bit elaborate on here. It's a pure Rotze. What does it mean, a Rotze? What does he want? And what is the cause for that Rotze? HaKavona b'zeh. The intent in attributing and referring to the Atzmus with the name Rotze, we mean to say the following. The B'chinas ha'atzum de'erin soiv, that the aspect of the Atzmus of the Ein Sof ein shayach boi shum shem klal. There, in it, in shayach any kind of a name. It is Ein Sof. It is not a presence within any other presence. It cannot be known outside itself. But then there is the hispashtus. In this Ein Sof, there is the bechina, what's called hispashtus. How it expresses itself, how the effect of its presence. Lefi shabo lifoil, due to the fact, lefi, because shabo lifoil, that it is there in order lifoil, in order to be effective, in order to accomplish something, to create something. The hispashtus of etzem is bo lifoil. Is to do something, to create something. Create something perhaps in its own image, but to create something outside. Shayach shom shem. So there, the term, the idea of a name is applicable. Avo, however, rak shem rotze. What kind of name, what name would be fitting there to identify this hispashtus? Since it's a hispashtus of the Ein Sof, which means it's a hispashtus of Ein Sof, which means it cannot be complemented. It is not there in order to complement itself. Therefore, this ispashtus is not something that comes from in itself, is a personal need, so to speak. But yet it comes lifoil. In the etzem there is an element of that he wants to be lifoil. He wants to be effective. And what is the behind this inyan that he wants to be effective? That inyan he wants to be effective is identified by the term rotzin. Shayach shem shem, the inyan from name is applicable. Avorak shem rotzin. Only the term rotzin, there is a will therein. Again, the rotzin is self-created. The rotzin is not a response to some kind of a need, but it's rotzin. And being that it's rotzin, therefore there is it can be identified by name. The inyan harotzin hu, where the inyan of rotzin is sheshayach al kolponim. And the inyan of rotzin is sheshayach al kolponim, that it is related al kolponim at the minimum. In other words, even if we completely negate a presence in rotzin, because it's all the etzem, nonetheless, if we say that there is a inyan for rotzin, whichever way, in whatever manner you will identify rotzin, negating any kind of a presence, nonetheless, it is shayach al kaponim hadov b'shoretz. It has some kind of a shaychus, relationship to the thing that he wants. Shehu reitz. Who is he? Who? The Ein Sof, the Atzmos. And he's shayach to this thing that he wants. Ve'ein b'bchinas mitzias dover le'atzmi. But this rotzain is not a b'chinas mitzias dover le'atzmi. It is not a standalone entity, presence. There is he and there is his rotz. The rotzin is the rotzin of the he, of the etzem. And it's one thing with the etzem. But because there is that kind of a presence, expressing from the etzem the aspect of rotzin, therefore there is this term, this name, which will still be explained this. He shaykh to the etzem has a shaykhs to the dover that he wants. Al kain, and therefore, thus, hapeul lo hi sheloi b'bchinas tfisa. The piula, this action of relating to that which he wants, is not b'bchinas tfisa, is not in an aspect, in a manner, tfisa, that he becomes grasped and identified with this rotz. He does not become limited, so to speak, to this action of this rotz. The rotzin is the rotzin that is a direct reflection, statement of the presence of the Yetz. Nonetheless, there is a name to it because there is something that he wants. Even though this something that he wants is not due to this something, it's due to his own rotzin, his own reality. Not because there's a benefit that he's going to get out of this thing, but this is what he wants. And thus, he's not in beginner's tfisa. Therefore, he is not identified with this rotzin. The rotzin does not grasp him, does not and define him, because this is his own rotzin. He creates the whole rotzin. Nonetheless, because there is this rotzin, therefore we can attribute, we can refer to it by name. The name is rotzin. Hold this a little bit in abeyance and we'll come back. Ukmeishin is boil yil perik nun beis. As was discussed earlier in Perishim Beis, that the peula of oir makiv is not tefisa, is not grasping the oir. Let's skip for the moment the parentheses. We're going to go down 3 lines. V'chein hu bibchinas oir. This is similarly reflected in the bchina of oir. This rotzain is the rotzain that identifies the rotzain of the etzer. In the oil aspect, there is also the similar thing. Let's try to point to what we mean by the word oil. Oir is a statement of its presence. Like we said in our meager way of pointing it out, a human being in his home somehow is present in every corner of his home. And the proof of that is that he will not tolerate anyone moving in any place in his home, even if he doesn't see him. The reason is because his oir, his statement of his presence is present all over. This oil, the similarity in the bchinas and the bchina of oil, the be'etzem, that in be'etzem, in essence, this oil, hu b'bchinas ayin, is in an ayin state. Ayin means a non-presence. It's a non-presence state. It's oil. Said he is present, but it's the presence is an ayin aspect. Ubibchinas pshitus lagamri, and is in total pshitus. So this means undefinable aspect, not an undefinable, not a defined aspect. What does it mean he's here doesn't mean anything. The the oil is not in a state of shaychus or sum davar to relate to anything. It's the oil of the etzem. It is an oil standing that the etzem is here. This oil is a bechina of ayin. This is the way it is in the etzem. Ubihispashtus. But then when it comes down to the next stage, that's called hispashtus. Harei hu b'bchinas shaychus. There is the union of shaychus, of having some kind of relationship, upeil dover. And there he has some kind of effect. And I'm going to next say this statement, and then we go back. Abel hu lei b'bchinas tfisu yislapshus. But this shaychus to anything else, and peil dov and its fuel is lei b'bchinas shaychus. B'bchinas tfisu yislapshus. It is without any tfisa. It's not without getting engaged, involved in yislapshus. And focusing him. So in our medium muscle, to have an idea of what we're talking about, he said, a human being in his home. A human being in his home is a fundamental reality. I've said many times, a home is not just a protection against the elements. A home is part of the reality of human being. Odem shein the bayis in the odem. A home is a direct emanation of the truth of what the human being is.